Yo, what up everyone? My name is SkyHighKen, and today we're going to be looking at unusual effects and determining which is good and which is bad. But before we start the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more future videos coming up very soon. I'll hopefully have them out shortly, and for now, just get on to the video. So Team Fortress 2 has really been known to have cosmetics, and with these cosmetics, there have been very rare hats. These rare hats are called unusuals. So Team Fortress 2 has had these very rare effects, and these rare effects give your class character, and with this, it also gives your class a unique color effect on top of their head. These effects come in a variety of forms, such as Burning Flames, Scorching Flames, Stormy Storm, Miami Nights, etc, etc. There are just so many of them out there, and trying to figure out how an unusual effect is very tough for new traders. A lot of times you have to determine the effect on the hat itself, and if it even looks good on the hat in general. So let's just go over some unusuals and determine which are good and which are not so great among the community. So one of the obvious prime examples of a great unusual effect are the Burning Flames, because it covers your head with a very lovely effect. The reason why the Burning Flames effect is such a lovely cosmetic is because it gives your character such a open and finesse look. It really is such an eye-opener because the effect of this item really gives off a huge vibe around the game. And the game itself is really how people will want to show off their items, and the way they show off their items is by status. Funny enough, in real life, we actually also do this ourselves. The way we do this is usually by wearing rings, jewelry, very fancy shoes, outfits, it can be whatever. The same applies for Team Fortress 2. The way people want to show off their status is by having these very exotic effects, and also hoping that people will catch their attention whenever they look at these effects. Because let's be honest, who doesn't want to show off themselves and what they've accomplished? So here's a really good rule of thumb. If you have an unusual and if it really shows off the effect of your item or your cosmetic, then generally it's going to be a very good unusual. So let's go to a different scenario now. What if I have a crummy unusual, quote unquote? Maybe like masked flies or nuts and bolts, because those are usually generally accepted as the cancer tier unusuals. Well, let's go back to what I said previously. Whenever you have an unusual, you want to show off the effect of how it looks. And nuts and bolts or masked flies doesn't really show off the effect that well in comparison to a Scorching Flames or a Miami Nights unusual. In that sense, not many people are going to really see the effect of your unusual whenever you're playing it in a game. But what if I have a team captains and it has nuts and bolts? Well, the unusual effect is not the best, but the team captains is a very lovely cosmetic. Since the team captains is a very good cosmetic, but the unusual effect is really crummy, then it's going to be categorized as a kind of crummy unusual, but it's still going to be categorized as a pretty decent unusual to sell at. Because again, we want to have a decent idea of how to sell our unusual. Hopefully you've seen my video on backpack.tf and how to use it formally. Then you'll have an idea of how to actually see what people are selling their unusuals for. If you haven't seen it yet, then I'll go over it real quick with you. To make it simple and as straightforward as possible, all we're going to do is just hover over pricing, and we're going to click on price grid. Then we're going to search up the cosmetic that has the unusual effect that we want to. So for this example, I'm going to use my unusual, which I have a Prancer's Pride. So all I did was just click on Prancer's Pride, and then I clicked on the item information. Now we should see the Prancer's Pride classifieds. And a little bit on the right hand side of the corner of the Prancer's Pride image, we're going to see some names like maybe Aces High or Antifreeze. So all I did was just click on the three little dots right next to those names, and now I'm just going to hunt for the unusual effect name that I have. The name of the unusual effect I have is a Stormy Storm Prancer's Pride. And if you look closely, then you'll see the sell orders of this item and the buy orders of the items. Generally, just ignore the buy orders as of now, however, it's a good rule of thumb to keep it as a reference. As of now, this unusual is really being sold at 10 keys and 19 refined metal, mainly because of me. So the unusual is being sold at 12 keys by bots, but for the only human that's selling it, it's only worth 10 keys and 19 refined metal because I'm undercutting them right now. So this could have several factors to this unusual. I don't really think it's because of the unusual effect, however, I do think it might be the cosmetic and how many of these unusuals exist in the game. Because Stormy Storm is a pretty decent low, mid-tierish unusual. However, if we look closely at the statistics, and it shows that there are only 34 of these known items to exist in the game. Plus, and this is actually even a bad plus, but the unusual hasn't even been updated in over 2 years. So does this make this unusual a bad unusual? Well, these are definitely not pluses, however, the unusual is a really decent unusual for any low tier traders to start to get into trading. So here's the idea of what this unusual is right now. It's pretty good if you want to have a cosmetic effect in game. However, whenever you're going to buy this unusual, you may want to kind of think twice about how you pay for this unusual. Not because this unusual looks bad or anything, but mainly because this unusual was updated 2 years ago and the prices for this unusual might be a bit finicky. But like I said, you also have to look at the unusual cosmetic itself, and the cosmetic itself is not really the best sought after cosmetic. Prancer's Pride is not really the most wanted hat in the game. So what makes a good cosmetic a good unusual cosmetic? Well, sometimes it depends on the class, because each class can have a different variety of hats, and each class is played either more or less than the average player. So what I mean by this is the soldier class is probably played more often than the heavy class, and if the soldier class is played more than heavy, then probably more soldier cosmetics with unusual effects are more wanted than heavy unusual effects. As far as classes are played, I don't know who's played the least, however, the classes are played the most are generally Scout and Soldier. Pyro, I would assume, is probably played the third most amount, because usually whenever a new player plays a class, they're going to pick Pyro since he's the easiest to play. So let's make another transition to another cosmetic with an unusual effect. I'm going to use this unusual that I have again, which is my unusual Omniscient or Patriotic Peak. What makes this unusual Patriotic Peak such a good unusual is because it's an all-class unusual, it looks very well on all classes. Only 11 of these exist in the game, so it's probably going to be more sought after than the average unusual effect. And believe it or not, this unusual was actually recently updated about a month ago. Plus, the unusual effect itself is a unique unusual effect because you don't really see these type of effects common around Tf2, and it's also a Halloween effect. Most Halloween unusual effects are only going to get more rarer as time goes by. And since my unusual effect is an Omniscient or Patriotic Peak that was just recently introduced in the previous Halloween update, which was 2018, then it's only going to get more and more rarer as time goes by, because you can't unbox this effect with this cosmetic on it. If there's anything bad about this unusual, the only thing that's bad about it is that people are trying to undercut this unusual that I have. Not because it's a bad unusual effect or a bad unusual cosmetic, but because they just want to sell this unusual as fast as they can. And in unusual trading, you're having to compete with many other sellers of different types of unusual effects and tiers. So let's go to the last idea of unusual effects. These unusual effects are referred to as themed unusuals. And what themed unusuals are a complement to the unusual effect as well as the unusual hat. Before I talk about unusual themed cosmetics, let me talk about cosmetic themes. That way I can give you a better idea of what we're going to be talking about. So let's use the example of the engineer cosmetic, the plumber's cap. The plumber's cap is a clear reference to Mario. And whenever you find certain cosmetics that fit the theme for the plumber's cap, then you may have a cosmetic set that shows off a Mario themed look for the engineer. You're trying your best to give off this impression that you look like Mario. And if you want to take it a step further to make this cosmetic look more themed, then you can paint it lime. Lime is the color of Luigi's hat, which will give you the impression that you're now Luigi as engineer. So here's an example of using the plumber's cap with an unusual effect to make it look themed. In the games, Luigi is afraid of ghosts, and there's an unusual effect called Haunted Ghost. So the theme behind this unusual effect has to do with Luigi being afraid of ghosts, and there are little spooky ghosts around the unusual cosmetic of the plumber's cap while it's painted green. Another simple example would be a cosmetic that is a snowman, and has a blizzardy storm effect on it. Well, the theme behind this cosmetic has to do with a snowman in a blizzardy storm, which gives the impression that the snowman is in a blizzard right now, or in snow. And this is where the term themed unusual comes from. Generally, those are going to be the 3 ideas that you're going to need to keep in mind whenever trying to sell your unusual. I really hope this video helped you get an idea of how unusual trading works and what to do whenever you're trying to sell your unusual. If you have any follow-up questions, please let me know in the comment section below. But other than that, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching my video. This is SkyHighKen, and I'll see you in the next video. Adios.